Well, welcome to another week, another farm. Obviously in a little unique attire, Murray, than I'm used to on a farm tour.
We'll call you Doctor.
The doctor, well, that's probably appropriate for me. We've got Murray here. Thanks for having us out, Murray.
You're welcome.
The hairnets and lab coats. You're not really a doctor.
No.
Why do we have all this on today?
Basically food safety, food security, and making sure that we do not transfer around diseases in the farm. That there is in older rooms, like we have a 6-week growing cycle here. So in 6 weeks, at the end of 6 weeks, we could be growing other molds that affect the mushroom growth.
Yeah. All right, well, we are in here. We've got this room here where you've got 6 different rooms. Do you want to take us into one?
Sure.
So first thought that I have, Murray, coming in here is you've got, what, 6, 7 layers of mushrooms
Right.
all over the place.
Yep.
You're growing a lot of mushrooms at one time.
Yeah, this room will produce out of 588 square meters about 40,000 pounds of mushrooms.
In that 6-week cycle, which is really just 3 weeks that you're harvesting.
Right. So there's 3 weeks there's 3 weeks of growing the mycelium, or we call it colonizing the casing layer, and then there's 3 weeks of harvesting. So there's we call them flushes. This is actually the room that's going into the first flush of mushrooms, and that's where we've dropped the air down below 20 degrees Celsius, and that Mother Nature basically says when your head's cold and your feet are warm, throw up a fruit body to drop your young. And the young are the spores that are in the gills underneath the mushroom cap.
Okay.
So as we're doing that, we're basically tricking the mushrooms to throw up fruit bodies. We harvest them off over 5 days, and then it rests for three days, and then it grows right back up again, calling that the second flush.
Okay.
And then we'll pick those over 4 days. It rests for 4 days, and then they grow right back up again for the third break, and we'll pick them off. So first break, it represents roughly about 60% of the total yield. Second break is roughly 30% of the total yield, and the third break is 10%. So yeah, that's basically the function of how we grow mushrooms.
So now what are they growing in, Murray, and how do you set this up?
So there's basically 22 centimeters of pasteurized substrate. That's basically a straw layer that has been partially composted and pasteurized to basically purify it.
These all look like the same kind of mushrooms. What kind of mushrooms are we looking at?
Right. So on this bed, they're called brown Agaricus, which isn't a very good marketing term. So
I haven't seen that in my grocery store. No.
I don't think so. So we've come up with marketing terms. This size is a crimini. That's about a 50 mil mushroom in diameter. And then we have a larger, these are all mainly criminis, but you can see in the background there's a bigger one starting to grow. That would be a portobello. So it's about a 70 mil mushroom. And then on the bed, eventually, since we're at the beginning of the harvest, we'll let, say, this mushroom here that has space around it, we'll let that grow into a large portobello. And that's just basically a marketing term. Mushroom does grow fast. That's why we call it mushroom. This mushroom will double in size in 24 hours, or 4% an hour it'll grow. So it has a fast growth rate. So once you see them, within 4 days, all these mushrooms will be off. Right, from this little guy to the bigger guy.
All of them. So now, you said you gave 3 different kind of mushrooms in my eye.
Yeah. When
I go to the grocery store, that's 3 different kind of mushrooms. You're telling me that they're actually not 3 different types. They're just how long they've been growing.
Right, size basically.
Now, the one thing though is that like that crimini to that portobello, they taste different.
They do, and the reason for the portobello tasting different than the crimini, if you look here, when we'll pick one off, you knuckle it and you twist it, and then that's a mushroom that is a crimini. So when you look on here, you can't see any of the gills growing. So this, when you buy it like that, the gills haven't expressed themselves. But in a large portobello, when it gets to be larger, they'll open up and you'll actually see the gills around the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's where all the flavor is. So that's why you get a lot better taste in a portobello because you've got the gills in there that are giving you the flavor.
It's basically an aged mushroom.
Yeah, it's a different
Aged wine, aged cheddar, aged mushroom.
Aged mushrooms, yeah, maturity of mushrooms. So we call these little babies, and the portobellos are the papas. So
oh, isn't that neat? So now you just kind of twisted that and picked it.
And then
is that how are you hand picking all of these?
Hand picking all of them, yeah.
That's a job for you and your team.
Yeah, that's why we have 15 harvesters right now picking the 40,000 pounds a week is what they're picking total.
So now when they pick it, how are they picking and what are they doing with them?
So what they do, that we have the trolleys here, and my assistant Chantelle. So what they're doing here, there's actually a static knife that's not in here. You basically cut the mushroom, the stem off, so it gets cut off right about here, and they put it on a scale, which shows that what this should weigh 5 pounds. And this is what they look like after they're in there with the stem cut off. It should be a 2/3 third.
Just like you get them at the store.
Yeah, just like you get them at the store. Once it reaches 5 pounds, a light goes on. It sends a signal to the computer upstairs, and then they take it off, stack it behind them, and put another basket on.
So basically you've got consistent of these boxes all the time when they're going.
They wait in the room. They're done. They're ready to be shipped.
Yep. Okay. Now, the other thing that I'm kind of noticing in here, it's got a bit of humidity in here. Yeah. It's fairly warm. It's not warm outside, that's for certain. No. So you're obviously controlling this to optimize mushrooms?
Right. We're always trying to... The myth about mushrooms, they think the lights have to be off. That's not true. They don't care lights on or off. It's all about evaporation. If you have an evaporative environment, if you feel it when the summer you come in, you can feel your skin being cooled. That's the state that mushrooms need. If you don't have evaporation in your room, you don't have mushrooms growing. So you're always evaporating in the room, and that's how a mushroom expresses itself, is through evaporation. Cool. Lights on or off, it's the opposite of plants. They don't need sun. They
really don't care if it's dark or light or anything.
Care, right? Yeah, and it's a pasteurized material, straw that they're growing in, with a peat moss layer on top that goes through. So very natural, very organically grown. Mm-hmm. We are organic certified, but mushrooms have always been really organic.
Yeah. Well, they grow on my lawn, so I don't think they'd be quite this good. So
if you see any of the dark flecks, like when you get your mushrooms in the package and get any of the dark flecks, just brush them off, or take a damp cloth and just wipe them off. Don't peel them because they have that natural cake layer around them. Yeah. But because it's just the peat moss and it's a pasteurized clean substrate, so
we don't really have to worry about them anyway.
Just brush it off. Yeah.
Food safety is of the utmost.
Now, when I do get them in the grocery store, there's two ways that I can find them in the grocery store. Usually, it's in a bulk bin where I put them in a bag, or they come in that container with a little bit of saran wrap type thing. Something like that with saran wrap. Yeah. In order to keep mushrooms as long as I can, do I just leave them in that? Do I put them in the fridge, keep them out? How do I keep a mushroom good?
Temperature at 1 degree if you can. Most fridges are at around 4 or 5, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to eat it all in the plastic container, throw them into a paper bag is optimum if you can. But paper bag, let them breathe. Anything living should be in paper. Even your carrots and anything should be in paper.
Just to let that air come and go.
Yeah, plastic we're living. We wouldn't be able to live in plastic.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
But paper would definitely extend your shelf life.
Cool. Very cool.
So as they're coming into here, into the spiral to be cooled, they're coming in overhead.
Oh, so they're running from those growing rooms along this conveyor.
Along the conveyor.
Yep, and they're going to start here.
Spiral belt.
A spiral belt looks like a pretty fancy unit.
Yeah, that's some of the cooling technology that we implemented here. Basically takes the mushroom down from 18 degree, which is the temperature in the room, 18 degrees Celsius, to 1 degree at the core of the mushroom, not just the outside. And that helps to increase the shelf life of the mushroom. So anything that's living, as soon as you can get it close to 0 as possible, mushrooms particularly, tomatoes you want to keep them at 5 or 6, but mushrooms 1 degree, you'll increase the shelf life incredibly.
And keep them cool. So then how long from the top to the bottom, how long are you getting them to that 1 degree?
Yeah, we call that dwell time. Dwell time is 50 minutes. When it comes in the top and it goes out that side, it's 50 minutes.
It's 50 minutes, and then they're basically, well, they're colder than my fridge even. So
yeah, they're colder than your fridge, and we keep them at 1 degree all the time, so we don't want to break the cold chain. When you break the cold chain, we think of when you warm up something that's cold, it condenses moisture on it, so that's where you get oxidization.
Even more.
And your mushrooms will brown because now you're getting moisture on there, and that's Mother Nature's way to start the
decompose type.
process of anything.
All right. Well, thanks for the tour, guys.
Yeah.